answer this question because I know it's on everybody's mind probably, and that is that during my sabbatical this year, I did a 16-day water-only fast. And I did it because I thought it was the one thing that might heal the eczema that I've had on my hands and feet for the past 2.5 years. And I'm just so happy, as I celebrated before, that it is almost totally gone. There's a little residual rough skin right here on the side. And it was a phenomenal experience. The other thing that happened unexpectedly was I had some scar tissue from skin cancer removal, and it dissolved into the nothingness from which it came. And then I have a big one on my back and top of my shoulder here. And it erupted during the water fast. And I kept feeling something strange. So I had a skin doctor appointment on Friday after I got home. And he confirmed. I said, you know, I think there's a stitch coming out. And the stitch was supposedly removed in April. And they removed some of the stitches, but they left one. And the water fast pushed it out. That's how powerful the body is if we let it do its thing instead of constantly filling it with more and more toxins. It will clean out what needs to be cleaned out. So I'm just really, really excited that I didn't just drink water for 16 days in vain, that I got the results I had hoped for and then some. And when I went to have my facial, where's Lisa? So Lisa, what happened when you gave me a facial on Saturday? What did you say?
Oh wow, your skin looks beautiful.
So my skin is just very different, and just in that, from those days of fasting, that how clear and I guess the pores they look better and stuff like that. So it was really neat because she had me in her magnifying glass and light, and she could see that difference. So anyway, anybody that ever wants to know anything about water fasting, I will be glad to share with you. My first experience of it was in 2011. I had been dealing with very low cortisol for 2 years. I had worked closely with an MD here in town, and no improvement. And it was bordering on Addison's disease, which is what John F. Kennedy had, and very serious disease. And I did a 22-day water fast, and it totally turned around my cortisol, and my cortisol's been normal ever since. So the body is a miraculous, intelligent being, you know, if we will let it do its thing. And you know, animals know that. When an animal is sick, often they don't eat, and we get worried and try to force feed them, right? You know, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. And when I went to the skin doctor, Dr. Gerner said, you know, I used to fast as a regular part of my routine. And I said, well, what did you do? And he said, I fasted 24 hours once a month, 3 days once a quarter, and a couple of weeks once a year. And he said, I'm going to start doing it again because he saw the results that I walked in with. So anyway, it's very safe. It's very different than starving. You know, most of us have never been hungry in our life. We don't know what it's like to be hungry. And hunger is not felt in the stomach. Hunger is felt in the jaw, in the throat, same place thirst is. So I used to think if I stubbed my toe, that was a hunger pain, you know? Any sensation was a hunger pain, so it's nice to know this. Okay, so the first question we have is, what is the unity principle that you identify with most? And that's an easy one for me. You know, in Unity we have 5 basic teachings. The nature of God, all good, all the time, no matter what. Nature of humankind, made in the image and likeness of God. The third one is prayer, that we know our connection with Spirit through the power of prayer. 4, the law of mind action, where our thoughts unfold our lives. You know, what thoughts are held in mind, produce after their kind. And my favorite one, and I call it where the rubber meets the road. That's why there's a sign out there as you leave our driveway that says where the rubber meets the road. And that principle is that knowing spiritual truths and principles and understanding them intellectually is not enough. We have to live them in our everyday life. And that's why I call it where the rubber meets the road. And to me, if I don't, I have to do that with all the principles. And so that's why it's my favorite and the one that I try to hold myself the most accountable to. So, the 5 principles. Did Charles and Mildred, that would be Charles and Myrtle, did Charles and Myrtle Fillmore name it Unity, or was it named later by someone else? Well, actually, the name Unity was revealed to Charles Fillmore in meditation. And it was an evening meditation, and you can imagine, you got a couple hundred people in the room, everybody's totally silent in meditation, and suddenly the name comes to Charles Fillmore. And in the middle of this silence, he yells out, "Unity! Unity! That's our name!" So Charles Fillmore coined the term, and because he had studied all the isms, all the religions, all the philosophies, and he gleaned from them what they all had in common. And so it really was fitting that our name would be Unity. What is Unity's philosophy on reincarnation? Well, that's one of those that Unity doesn't take a stand on. Unity's, a lot of people in Unity believe in reincarnation. I certainly believe that something happens with this body. After the body's gone, I believe that I live on, and I have no idea because I haven't been there yet, or I have, but I've forgotten, what happens. But a lot of people in Unity do believe in reincarnation. And what I've learned over the years is there's a lot of different ways to believe in reincarnation. And the one I choose to believe in is that we always come back at a higher level. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I choose to believe. That if I'm going to come back and have another earthly experience, is that Leanne? I didn't know you were here. There's Leanne. Thank you for telling Liz about the job. Okay. Okay, anyway, little distraction there. So, so it's like, there's a lot of different ways to believe it, And sometimes because of karma, these negative things are going to happen, whatever. Well, if that suits you and you're comfortable with it and that serves you, go for it. I just want to believe I'm going to come back and whatever I've learned this time around, all the other times around, it's just going to be added to what I experience next time. So that's why I want to do the best I can where the rubber meets the road this time around. All right. When you find yourself in a place that you feel everything, everywhere you turn is incomplete, unfinished, and a massive mountain to climb, how do you find inner peace, balance, calm, and the strength to accomplish or start any of this? How do you start? How do you keep from feeling like nothing is moving forward? Well, when I feel those feelings, I know it's my ego that is thinking that, my personality, and that it's forgotten the truth. That right here, right now, all is well. And so what I have to do in order to start is I have to stop. I have to stop. Stop all the busyness in my mind, my things I'm doing to distract myself or whatever, and become still and be silent and turn within and consult with my true divine nature, the Christ of my being, for the truth. And I like to use HeartMath as my method for doing that. And a lot of you have experienced HeartMath either in a Sunday service or one of my classes, and basically to just get out of the head, drop my mind, my attention to my heart, breathe as if I'm breathing in and out through the heart. And as I'm breathing in and out through the heart, I recall something that brings a rejuvenating feeling of gratitude or compassion or kindness, joy. I recall something that gives me that feeling tone in my heart. And that puts my heart in alignment with my divine nature, with the allness of all that is. to the intelligence that is so far beyond my human intellect. And then I get the reassurance, I get the peace in that moment. And maybe I'll even get a message that says, you know, all is well, or consider the lilies of the field, or whatever my scripture or an affirmation or a truth principle that will carry me and support me through. But the number one thing that I try to remember is that what is. Okay? And my job is to accept what is. Now that doesn't mean I don't put feet on and take some action, but I take the action from the guidance of my heart, not from my reptilian brainstem back here, or even from my neocortex. My neocortex I need in order to hear and understand, but I want to do what my heart says to do. And when I do that, I'm able to get through those tough times. See if I got any. Oh yes, here's one. What does Unity Day or say? Unity, say, or Myrtle? I'm going to read it like it says, and then we'll figure out what it means. What does Unity Day or Myrtle and Charles Day, I think it say, about angels, mentioned in the Bible many places as our personal messengers? And it says say, not day. Okay, so you read the second message first, sometimes it helps. So, well, Charles always talked about dreams, you know, that angels, or whatever, messengers, we think of angels as messengers of truth. And so, very much, you know, I don't know that I've ever heard anybody in Unity say they believed in a winged creature, necessarily, but we know there are invisible angels, and perhaps visible ones, that are always available to us. And I believe we tap into them again using HeartMath. Going into the heart, getting out of the head, and listening for that guidance that tells us the next step to take. Because that's all we can do, right? It's the next step. And so sometimes I might even ask, what's the next step for me in this matter? You know, and then I have to shut up to listen and to hear. So I think the most correct answer would be Unity believes that angels are messengers of truth that that we have access to. Okay. All right. Oh, and so we have another question. Are we home yet? I feel rather homesick for God and oneness. Yeah. Well, I do believe that we're always home, but we have to recognize it, you know, because we forget. We forget that we are home. And so that's what the real challenge is. I think the angels always. And home is where the heart is, right? So if I straighten, oh, I heard something. This is perfect. I went to get my 22-year AA chip. My life has never been better. And somebody said at the meeting, no matter how far into the woods I go, it's only 12 steps out. Isn't that beautiful? It's only 12 steps out. No matter how far from home I may stray. Okay? And, you know, I've given a whole series on the 12 steps. To me, they are the most, you know, along with HeartMath, the most important spiritual practices I have ever done. And I do the 12 steps on anything I have no power over. Okay? One time I lost a gold watch that Ed Rivers gave me. And I had to work the 12 steps because I was obsessing about it. And so I just acknowledged I was powerless over the fact that I watch. And that my life had become unmanageable because I was obsessing about it. I couldn't think about anything else. And that I knew there was a power greater than me that had the answer. I came to believe that. And then what was my part on the fourth step? Well, I knew it was loose and I didn't take it to the jeweler. That was my part. Okay? And I shared that, you know, with our God, myself, and another human being. And then I became willing to turn over those parts to me that get in the way to a higher power. Step 7, I did it. Step 8, I had to make amends. I had to make amends to myself because I didn't do what I was guided to do. That angel, that watch angel, you know, I hadn't listened. And so I had to forgive myself and make amends to myself. And then I called Ed because I felt so bad. It was a beautiful gold watch. And he'd given it to me and I lost it. And I called him and shared with him that I was so, you know, so much appreciated that he loved me enough to give it to me, and that I was so sad that I'd lost it. And then steps 10, you know, we continue to take our personal inventory. 11, we seek through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. And 12, we strive to live these principles in everything we do, where the rubber meets the road. So 12 steps. Don't think you got to be addicted to alcohol, drugs, sex, or food, or whatever. You've all got addictions. The biggest one we all have is control. We're addicted to control, and we have no control, you know, over a lot that happens in the world. So, so whenever we stray from home, whenever we feel we've gotten into the woods, or we don't know our way back, you know, it's only 12 steps back. And you know, the first of those is to just stop and turn within and ask for guidance. So, yeah. And then you'll know that, like the prodigal son, you know, when the prodigal son left and went to the far country and squandered his inheritance, you know, when he was finally here, he is a nice Jewish boy eating with the pigs, you know. It's pretty low for a Jewish boy to be eating with the pigs. And he realized that he had to turn his life around. And so it says he turned around and he, to go home to the father. And of course, the father greeted him part way with his arms open wide. There's nowhere it says the father forgave him, because it was understood. He was just loved and accepted, no matter how far in the woods he had gone. And that's our truth too. All we have to do is turn around. That's what the word repent means. You know, it's a real button pusher for some of us brought up in traditional Christianity. You know, the idea of repenting, well, basically, just turn around. You know, turn back towards God. That's all we have to do. What is the great quote from Charles Fillmore when he was in his 90s? Something like, "I live each day with zeal." Well, at age 94, Charles Fillmore wrote, "I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm as I spring forth with a mighty faith to do what ought to be done by me." 94 years young when he wrote that. I love it. It's my favorite quote. What is Unity's opinion about the LGBT community? I ask because some religions say we are going to hell. Well, those religions are already in hell. You know, some people go to church in order not to go to hell, and some people like come to Unity because we already been there and we don't want to go back. You know? And so hell is a state of consciousness, you know, and so is heaven. So we choose every moment whether we're in hell or heaven. And Unity has always been open and affirming about the LGBTQ community. We've had probably more publicly out gay, lesbian ministers way before, you know, I mean, I've been a minister 25 years, and I remember our directory, and it would list partners, you know, the same-sex partners, and I always felt so good about that. And one time, we were having somebody called me from the Friends, what is it, Friends and Family of LGBT community, and they said, why doesn't your ad say that you're open and affirming for lesbian and gays? And it's like, because we always have been. It never occurred to me that we needed to state it. But then when other communities started stating it, we realized, well, we have to state it. Because otherwise we know, but who else doesn't. So we affirm our prayer for all creation. No matter, everyone is accepted in unity. And if somebody in unity doesn't accept you, then they don't belong in unity. Because we are totally open and accepting of all of everything about us. Those things we have no control over. Those things we do have control over. And we just say, yes, you are welcome here. Welcome home. All right. I just want to double check, see if there's any more questions that came in on text. Nope. Oh, wait. Oh, so that's the same one. Are we home yet? Right. Oh, speak to us on Unity's position on caring for the sick and the needy, feeding the hungry, welcoming the stranger, and the role of government, as well as personal responsibility in that, as we are one. We're the local class on that one. That sounds like a lot. I think the bottom line is that in the old days, before there were other nonprofit organizations, the churches are the ones that took care of the needy. The widows and the orphans, right, Jerry? We talked about that. It was the churches. And people gave money to the churches because the churches did all the social action that there was in the world. And nowadays, there's a lot of wonderful nonprofit organizations that do carry some of that heavy lifting. So people go, wow, so people no longer give all their funding, say, to the church. And that's fine because they're carrying out the work that was originally carried out by ministry. And so we hope that in your giving, that you include us, but that you also include those organizations that do the work that, imagine if we had to do that with our group of people, we wouldn't be able to do as good a job. But yet you and I can go volunteer for some of those organizations, and we can also make financial contributions. I think the challenge I have nowadays is that social action has become very politicized, and I think that's a real shame. Because humanity and being humane and treating people well is not a political issue. It is a social issue. It is a spiritual issue. So that's where I personally stand on that. Okay, so let's bring this all home. So I invite us to just breathe consciously. We're always breathing. The body, the spirit is breathing us. But let's bring it, this active breathing, to our conscious awareness. And breathe as if we're breathing in and out through the heart. Giving our attention to the heart, to the breath, instead of anything that might be of concern to us. And then taking a moment to experience a feeling tone, a rejuvenating feeling tone. It could be gratitude, appreciation, compassion, joy, awe, love. Just recall something that gives you that feeling. And allow yourself to feel that feeling in the heart. And allow it to spread through every cell and atom of the body, the heart, the soul, the mind. Indeed, home is where the heart is. In our heart, we are home. And I invite us to rest together in the silence of this sacred home of the heart for a few moments. As we gently bring our attention back to this time and place, feel gratitude in your heart for the wisdom to come home to the heart, anytime, night or day, right in the midst of a challenge or in the midst of a celebration. Come home to the heart. Listen to its wisdom. And put feet on its wisdom in everything we think, say, and do out there where the rubber meets the road. Thank you, divine nature. That is my true essence, and yours as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That it is so, that we are so, and so it is. Amen.